Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Don't be alarmed by the fuzzy footage here. My phone was just being a little weird, and so it will shortly come into focus in a little bit. I just wanted to show you the very beginning of this video, which is going to be about how I make an intuitive painting and how it ends up developing into an abstract landscape. I did have to delete some of the footage because it was fuzzy, but all you have missed is just me putting down a bunch of different colors and using different brush strokes, different types of marks to really get a good base going. I want to get rid of the blank page, and I want to experiment with different brush strokes, different colors, and I really just want to have a lot of fun at this point. This is really the beginning stages here of the painting, and so I have absolutely no plans. I'm not thinking in my mind that I'm going to be making a landscape. It is something that just sort of develops. The palette that I'm using for this is acrylics and Neocolor 2s. The acrylics that I'm using are titanium white, Mars black, cad yellow medium, yellow ochre, emerald green, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, and alizarin crimson. So a few colors more than I usually use. I also used a little bit of burnt sienna as well. So here I am applying the green, and I am just enjoying having fun. I'm still at a stage where I don't know what I'm doing and I don't have any plans. I am using the dry brush technique here just to add a little bit of a thin layer over top of what I have here. One of the things I love about acrylics is that you can just layer and layer and layer, and you get to decide, do you want to use them in an opaque manner, or do you want to use them transparently or thin? Do you want to use washes? That's a wash there that I'm applying. It's a very thin layer of ultramarine blue and a little bit of black. And look, here I am doing a more opaque kind of a layer here. So I really just love to experiment and explore and see what comes through. Another thing that I really like about acrylics is that, you know, you can have an opaque layer and then you will put some thin layers on, and it's so interesting to see what happens with the layer below. How does it come through? What does it look like? What sort of an effect do you get from adding different colors, be they thin or thick, whether it's maybe a dry brushing layer or, you know, a more thin layer. So here I added a little bit of Neocolor 2, and I just used water with it, so I get a nice thin wash there. And I'm kind of just exploring with adding some different colors here. I'm using, that's burnt sienna I'm adding there, and it just felt like there's a little bit too much green in the lower portion, so I wanted to bring in some red there. So here I'm going in with a much darker color because I felt like the painting is missing something, like there's not enough contrast in it, and I just like the idea of this sort of dark atmospheric type of look that it's getting. Now I'm adding the green in here. I guess I'm feeling at this point like it's not very unified. There's a lot of different things going on, and you do get that, of course, in an intuitive painting, but I'm sort of at this point thinking about unifying it and having things come together a little bit more. And at this point, because I've added sort of this green in the foreground and I've got that dark upper portion which looks like a dark sky, that at this point I'm now thinking, okay, I think this is going to turn into a landscape. So I'm sort of going in, I'm still playing intuitively, like I am adding different marks, and I'm not feeling very committed to any way. Like there's nothing that in this painting where I'm like, oh, I love this, I need to keep it the way it is. I'm still experimenting, but I am keeping in mind landscape as I go. So here again, you can see that a lot here. I use thin layers quite a lot, and I like to build them up. Again, just as I mentioned earlier, it's so much fun to like apply glazes and see what does it do to the color underneath. I just love that, and it's a lot of fun. Here I am making some more brush marks, just using the brush in different ways, you know, applying the brush in different ways just to get some different textures. One of the big things that if you are doing a landscape, you know, you want to have a lot of different textures in it because it makes it so interesting and it helps to move your eye through the piece as you're working on it. Doing some more dry brushing here again, just seeing what happens. In my mind, I think I kind of had the idea of, you know, sort of a dusky night or a sunset and there's a storm, that sort of a vibe. And I want to again make the sky very dramatic, so you see me going in again with this dark mix of ultramarine blue and black. And I just keep refining the piece. I keep going along and seeing, well, how does this feel? How does this seem to go with the piece? Does this work? I do keep in mind when I know I'm at the point of, okay, this is going to be a landscape. I've decided that. Then I do keep more art principles in mind, I guess you could say. So things like value, and that's why I'm making the sky dark and other parts light. I'm trying to get those contrasting values in. I'm also thinking about the color. I didn't want it to be too dominant with the green, so I put in some of those marks with the Neo Color 2. That is the English red crayon that I used there. And I'm just applying paint and seeing what happens when I rub the paper on it to try to get rid of some of the paint. Here I am I'm thinking that I want that part to sort of be more distant mountains, I guess you could say, or distant hills, which is why I put that color in. I then didn't really like it. I felt like it was a little bit too opaque. And there are many times throughout this painting or this process where when I watched the video back to make this commentary, I thought, what were you doing? Like, it was good where it was. And that's one of the joys and frustrations of doing, you know, art, is that sometimes you go too far and you regret it, but it's okay because we learn from it. You get a chance to see and to learn when you should maybe hold back a little bit more. So I applied that violet reddish color, again, sort of simulating mountains. This is semi-abstract, so it's not going to be super realistic or anything, so it's all sort of vague. And that's another reason why I like these landscapes, is you don't have to be perfect. It takes the pressure off to just say, hey, this is semi-abstract. I mean, this can be, you know, loose and free and a lot of fun, whereas, you know, you can get very fussy and tight when you're trying to make a realistic piece. So you can see here, I'm continuing to add these colors and I'm trying to, the lighter colors, and I'm trying to just get the right balance here. I want to make this like sort of a sunset, sort of a stormy night. I'm trying to find that balance there, and I'm trying to decide how best I can accomplish that. Again, more wiping away. You can see I love doing that. It's like, oh, it's too much. Sometimes I will apply water onto the paper towel and rub it like that. Other times I don't, and I just, you know, try to sort of scrub it away. So here I am now putting in this lighter color. I've decided, yes, that's what I'm going to do. I am going to make it more of a, I'll say a stormy sunset sort of a situation. That dark green, I put that in there. That's kind of just, you know, simulating maybe there's some trees in this landscape. Again, you know, the human eye will fill in the details for you. So, you know, you don't have to get too detailed with these things. The mind is able to just fill it in and realize, you know, hey, this is sort of a landscape. So I'm going back in again with the ultramarine blue and black mix and getting that dark contrast back in again. I keep going back over and over. No, it's too dark. No, it's too light. And this is something that I do. I just get fussy, you know, and I see that happening throughout this piece. So that's something that I personally learned about, is to not fuss so much and get too finicky. And, you know, this is supposed to be fun. It's in my sketchbook. This isn't like a finished piece I'm selling or anything. So there's no need to white knuckle it and try to get detailed. But, you know, that's how we are. We by nature may struggle with that. And it's something that we keep working on to get looser and looser. So I'm getting to the later portion here. I am again going in with more light colored. I want to get this just right. And it's funny because I actually came back to this the next morning and I looked at the piece and I was like, no, it's still not quite right. So this part is where I am fixing it up once again. And I'm really liking where this has ended off. I'm almost at the end of the piece here. And like I said, this was fun and I did learn a lot. I learned about maybe where I could stop and not try to be too tight. I was in my head for quite a bit of this painting, and that's something that I would really like to improve on. So this is where this piece ended off, and I hope you got some tips from this. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.